party General Secretary, Deputy General Secretary is also here with us. He's in the person of Professor Haruna Mohammed. He's also here with us. So can we be all outstanding? And then we'll try to, sing the anthem of the new patriotic party. We are the new patriotic party. We are the new patriotic party. The elephant is the stable. We shall win to save Ghana. The elephant is the stable. We shall win to save Ghana. We shall win to save Ghana. To save Ghana. We shall win to save Ghana. To save Ghana. The elephant is the stable. We shall win to save Ghana. One more. Arise, Ghana, youth for your country. The nation demands your devotion. Let us all unite to uphold and make it great and strong. We are all involved. We are all involved. We are all involved in building a motherland. We are all involved. We are all involved. We are all involved in building a motherland. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Please use your seat.
Colleagues in leadership, ranking members of the mighty minority caucus, deputy ranking members, colleague members of the mighty minority of 87, our friends from the media, good morning to all of you. Morning. And let me, on behalf of the leadership of the caucus, wish you, though belated, a happy new year. And to the media, let me also thank you on behalf of the caucus for all you've done for democracy and for our caucus. We started in 2025, January 7th, with a lot of uncertainty. We must admit that through you, the media, bloggers, traditional media, all of you, you've given the minority a voice, and this we don't take for granted. God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, the moral test of Parliament is not the size of its majority, but the constitutional courage of its minority. In Ghana's 9 parliaments, where the NDC commands a historically large majority and the MPP holds just 87 seats, the MPP minority has often functioned as the Republic's circuit breaker, insisting that constitutional procedure, oversight, and public accountability prevail over brute numbers. My dear editors, members of the press, we want to say this plainly. Article 162 of the 1992 Constitution does not simply acknowledge your work. It protects your freedom as essential to our democracy. It guarantees that press is free to question power at all times. And democracy forbids censorship or interference that would weaken your duty to reform, scrutinize, and challenge. Without that freedom, used with courage and integrity, every other institutional promise is reduced to words on paper. You are the guardians of the space between our national ideals and their fulfillment. Through your vigilance, you decide whether our democracy remains a living, accountable system or decays into mere performance, impressive in ceremony, but empty behind the curtain of power. Our unlocked elders give us a warning in the program. Okubi says he has covered his eyes with his hands and is using his jaw to see. It describes a deliberate silence, a choice to ignore what one clearly sees in order to avoid the consequence that truth might bring. It is that habit of seeing but pretending not to see, of knowing but refusing to speak. This is how constitutional democracies often begin to die. They rarely fall with tanks in the streets or gunfire in the night. Instead, they erode through the slow corrosion of conscience, the gradual acceptance of the gap between what the Republic promises and how it actually behaves. We sense the decay, yet, if there is silence, it will be allowed to spread. I am proud to say that you, the media, remain fair in opening up issues, but like we always say, there's no room for improvement. This gathering is not a party run. It is a constitutional conversation for the public record. We speak today with an eye to the historians of tomorrow, who will ask whether we found the courage to speak when it mattered, or whether we watch in silence as the distance between our ideals and our nation's actions grew too wide to close. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been told that the economy is doing well. That is not in doubt. But the question is the economy doing well because there is prudent management of our economy, or that whether this government has introduced some social intervention programs that have in itself created an opportunity for young, ambitious Ghanaians? We hereby submit that the so-called gains were not born out of government's competence in the management of our economy. Rather, the IMF program, debt relief, rising commodity exports, reduced expenditure are the major reasons for the upswing in Ghana's economy, not a re-engineering of the economy. Therefore, my respected friend and colleague, Dr. Forster, must know that these facts expose the government's hypocrisy in telling us that they have prudently managed the economy. The much-touted fiscal consolidation has been attained on the back of a sharply cut expenditures for critical sectors, resulting in lower borrowing needs, and currency appreciation solely due to the weakening of the US dollar, which has led to preference for massive global investment in gold. Also, the debt restructure, which we started under MPP while in government, in addition to the commodity export boom in gold and cocoa, have led to the big trade surplus which was recently announced. So since May 2023, Ghana has had a 3 billion from Ghana's IMF program, which in turn has unlocked live debt relief and financing. For example, in mid-2025, Ghana's parliament approved a 2.8 billion restructuring deal with 25 official creditors, including China, France, the US, UK, and others. Under this agreement, all debt payments due through 2026 were rescheduled, effectively granting Ghana 2.8 billion in debt service relief it could play with in the budget. So once again, Ghana's economic fortune so far is tied to the IMF program and the windfall, not necessarily due to any re-engineering of the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me straight away zoom in to raise an issue of NDC's hypocrisy and double standards. In the 8th Parliament, when they were in opposition, they told the whole world that there was a need to pass an anti-LGBT law. Basically, they said that to protect our own culture, our religious beliefs, there's a need to pass a law that will criminalize any acts of lesbianism, gayism, etc. They were loud on the streets of Accra. They went into our villages, engaged the media, engaged religious leaders, engaged traditional rulers. 1 year down the line, they've been in office. They have gone quiet on this anti-LGBT law. We hear His Excellency the President play on words, claiming that the government was doing wider consultation to see how the law could be formulated in a better way. Really? But was it not the same law that they said it was okay to be passed? And again, when the mighty minority members decided through private members' bill to now pin them to their own principles, suddenly, after all the processes have been followed and approval given, and the motion was on the other paper, the NDC, through its majority leader, found a way of using procedure to claim that there was no such approval by the Speaker and tried to scapegoat the clerk to Parliament. As we speak, they have refused, neglected, and deliberately denying the people of Ghana that anti-LGBT law that they themselves spoke about. To make matters worse, our own curriculum, they have found space to introduce this promotion of sexual rights in the curriculum of our children. When they were exposed, this is what they had to say, that it was a mistake and that an anomaly. What an anomaly? When government documents have been printed, circulated, and signed by no less a person than the sector minister, and through the vigilance of the minority, you get exposed, you now say it was an anomaly. We don't accept this. we hold the view that the NDC used the anti-LGBT law only for power. And now that they are facing the reality, they want to find a way of running away from it. We will insist that they act by their own principle. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also address the issue of gold for reserves. We are not in any way opposed to that policy because the policy was started by us. We, the minority, are again not opposed to the institutionalization of a new vehicle to see to the implementation of that all-important policy. However, we have two major concerns. Concern number one, the establishment of the Gold Board as a regulator and also an operator is in a way directly encouraging galamsey activities. Our water bodies are being polluted. In fact, organized labor last year sounded the alarm and indicated that the galamsey activities have worsened. This government has failed to provide tangible evidence of its commitment in the fight against galamsey. It is clear that they are always involved in a PR gimmick, looking at the optics rather than the substance. They are interested in short-term gains, and today we don't know whether the Gold Board makes a distinction between regularly mined gold or an illicit gold. All we know is that they are talking about their success story, the amount of gold or the tons of gold they are purchasing. Yet they fail to tell us whether or not there are measures to fight against illicit gold that are mined through galamsey activities. We are concerned because the future of this country is at stake. And the earlier this government took steps to protect the future of Ghana, the better. Second, we are also concerned about the IMF reported $240 million as of September 2025. There seems to be some confusion between the Gold Board and the central bank. But we want to tell the central bank, participating in the activities, being part of the feast, and when there are issues, you run away and you want to put the blame squarely at the feet of Gold Board will not wash. The IMF says that the losses came by as a result of Bank of Ghana failing to protect our funds. How can you give money to Gold Board to buy gold and they make losses because of exchange rates differences? How can you be paying fees that by law you are not entitled to pay? How can there ever be a justification that in rolling out a policy there is an economic cost? Let me remind the central bank that His Lordship, Justice Afenyo of Blessed Memory, in the Salome case, laid down the ground rules, especially the true definition of causing financial loss. The central bank must not forget this. What is happening amount to a financial loss to the state. We are also aware that respected and senior legal experts within government seem to have warned on this. It is filtered through to us. Therefore, we urge the central bank to immediately take steps to address this. Though we become aware that there was a joint board meeting between central bank and the Gold Board as a result of the concerns raised by the minority, of which there was a conclusion that artisanal mining model should now go for 9.75 for bullion and 9.55 for unprocessed gold, which is a reduction from the previous 15%. Much as this is commendable, we still think that there are still losses that will have to be considered. We are also aware that Central Bank is saying that it wants to give some moratorium of 1 month to allow for further deliberations amongst the various parties, the Ministry of Finance, Gold Board, and government, on a sustainable cost-sharing structure for the program. So indeed, if the minority was merely blowing hot air, why have they now decided through joint board meeting to take steps to ensure a sustainable cost structure? We are concerned about these losses. We believe that if indeed we are going to have a goal for oil reserves, the government must take steps to sustain it by ensuring that there is real profits. The approach they have adopted will not help the country. We need money to build roads, to construct hospitals, to build schools, to create jobs. And if the central bank is going to underwrite some of these artificial losses and turn around to tell us that it's an economic cost, we regret to say that the minority will not accept this. We are open to discussions on this matter, and just as we always do, we'll put forward our views. We also want to say that we filed a motion in Parliament. We have become aware that the Speaker has admitted a motion which would allow for broader engagement and consultation on this matter. We urge the various stakeholders in this goal for oil reserve to open up, to hear our views, so that together we can move this country forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I will proceed to state that at a recent World Economic Forum in Davos, the Canadian Prime Minister delivered a message to the global elite that they did not want to hear. He warned that the old order is not coming back. He described a new world in which major powers use tariffs, supply chains, and financial systems as open tools of pressure and control. He urged that what we call, quote, rules-based international order, unquote, has for many become an exercise in living within a lie, unquote. A system countries feel obliged to join, while privately knowing it no longer works as advertised. For a smaller economy like Ghana, this is not an abstract debate. It is a direct challenge. It means we cannot rely on comfortable stories of mutual benefits when the structures of global integration are being used as instruments of leverage. This new world demands three clear responses from Ghana. First, we must build a truly strong and resilient domestic economy. We need enough strategic autonomy that no outside power can bend us through debt traps, currency games, or control over one key export. Economic sovereignty cannot remain a slogan. It must become the solid foundation of an independent foreign policy. Second, we must deliberately diversify our international relationship. We must deepen ties across Africa and engage carefully with traditional partners in the United States, the European Union, UK, China, Canada, and with emerging powers, without surrendering our sovereignty to any single dominant player. Third, and most important, we must root our foreign policy in the constitutional values we live by at home. A so-called pragmatic foreign policy that turns a blind eye to impunity, corruption, and injustice inside our borders is not realism. It's a performance of sovereignty that hides a quiet acceptance of dependence. We cannot project moral clarity abroad if we refuse to practice it at home. Take Ghana's ambition to mediate between ECOWAS and the Alliance of Sahel States. It is a worthy and necessary goal, and it reflects the traditional leadership Rogan often claims. But moral authority is never something a country can simply declare. It is earned gradually through steady action at home. It rests on the integrity of a nation's own institutions. A government that tolerates opaque, loss-making schemes orchestrated by the central bank, that turns prosecution into political weapon, that attacks judicial independence by unconstitutionally removing a chief justice, and that allows ongoing destruction of our rivers, is steadily destroying the very credibility it wishes to display abroad. Real sovereignty in diplomacy is built on domestic accountability. A nation earns a right to be a principled foreign policy by making its own society more resilient, transparent, and just, so that it is less vulnerable to pressure and less easily silenced. Before Ghana can credibly reconcile other nations, it must first bring its own practice into line with its proclaimed values. Our influence abroad will always be limited by the strength of our integrity. And by the way, we have seen that my Lord Bafuboni and his management are all over at the various ministries, including Jubilee. Is he on a thank you tour? Is my Lord Bafuboni on a thank you tour, thanking the government for appointing him as a chief justice? And we hear today he's coming to Parliament. We, the minority, don't see him as a tolerant head of the division, because members of the minority came under attack when we criticized the processes leading to his nomination. We will therefore not be part of his thank you talk. If he wants to engage us, our offices are open. He should come and engage us, and we'll let him know things that we find wrong. Colleagues, members of the media, let me emphasize that the macroeconomic figures from last year, although rare on the surface, encouraging as well. We are aware that inflation has dropped from a peak in the 20s to single digits. We are aware that government is now touting it as its own successes. But instead of welcome, we must ask, stability for whom and at what long-term costs? Think of economic policy as a bridge connecting the state to its citizens. On one side of that bridge are the conference rooms in Accra, where ministers display tidy charts and quote IMF reports. On the other side are the market of Efutu, the busy streets of Tamale, and the households of Tapa, where Ghanaians experience the economy not as statistics, but as struggles with food prices, utility bills, and the search for decent work. In 2025, that bridge broke. Inflation fell on paper, but the cost of a simple meal remained beyond reach for many families. Growth accelerated in the aggregate, but around 1.25 million young people were left outside employment, education, or training. A generation waiting on the margin. Macroeconomic stability improved, yet an estimated majority of water bodies are polluted, and energy sector debt still sits in the billions of dollars. This gap has a clear cost. the current stabilization rests heavily on the tight IMF conditions. New levies imposed on already burdened citizens and continued dependence on the same narrow export of gold and cocoa. Now, instead of introducing reforms in the energy sector, they decided to impose levies. Remember that they said e-levy was bad and they were going to scrap it. They were going to outlaw it. And Ghanaians celebrated them when they repealed the e-levy. But let's look at some numbers. They took away e-levy, but utility tariffs alone, so far, we have seen an excess of 27%. Electricity tariffs, under Akufo-Addo, where we were paying e-levy at 1.5%. And they were telling us, the NDC told us that it is too much. Today, electricity tariffs have gone up in excess of 27%. That is NDC hypocrisy for you. They also came to Parliament in the dead of night to introduce the Dumso levy, which upon our scrutiny, they decided to suspend it. But again, in the dead of night, they started the implementation. So Ghanaians are being burdened with all these levies, yet they claim that they are carrying them. Let me repeat that the current stabilization rests heavily on the tight IMF conditions. And like I said, they've imposed new levies. Deep structural weakness from inefficiencies in the energy sector to bottlenecks in agriculture remain largely untouched. This is not transformation. It is a postponement of crisis wrapped in a polished statement. So for agriculture, let me ask our respected colleague, Eric Oboku. He is a very intelligent parliamentarian. I don't doubt his understanding of the agro sector. But talk is cheap. It is not about his talking. Today I want to ask my respected colleague, Honorable Eric Oboku, the minister responsible for agriculture, to hold a press conference and tell Ghanaians the real policies that have been introduced to help promote agriculture. There is none. In the fishery sector, the least said about them, the better. So really, this government talks so much in opposition, but in government, there is nothing they've done in the agro and the fisheries sectors to promote growth, and we see it in that field. I'm sure later Dr. Iwa Oboku would expatiate on this with the numbers for you. Now they promised 24-hour economy. And the 24-hour economy, they said, one job, 3 shifts. So each job will carry 3 people. And they said, oh, even if you want to do farming, there will be a system where you can farm at night. They said, oh, you can sell your watching in the night. That's what they told us. But today, after voting for them, what do we see? Even Ghanaian youth who gained employment as far back as 2017 were all sacked. When the minority introduced a motion to question the Chief of Staff's letter directing these mass dismissals, the first strategy that the majority deployed was to hold a preliminary objection, which the first deputy speaker came with an already prepared written ruling even before he had the argument. And when we filed a motion for review of this repugnant ruling, Mr. Speaker found a way of denying us a voice. It is taking 8 months, an important matter that affects the livelihood of Ghanaians. And I want Ghanaian youth to hear this. matters that would involve the restoration of their jobs. Parliament refused to give the minority a vote. They used procedure. Each time we raised this, they told us, oh, the speaker says he wants to preside himself, the speaker will preside himself. So that we've not been able to conclude on the debate on that motion. And Parliament is going to reconvene again on the 3rd of February 2026. We want to assure the many youths who have been rendered unemployed as a result of that letter that we will not relent. We will fight for them until they gain their employment back. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we submit further that this government has failed the Ghanaian people in the most basic duty of a modern state, to move its citizens safely and decently from one part of their own country to another. In 2026, at major terminals from Circle to Kaneshi and Medina, hundreds of Ghanaians are stranded for hours because the national fleet has collapsed from over 1,000 public buses to barely more than 100 in operation. While more than 400 Metro Mass buses brought in garages or have even been sold off as scrap, commuters are headed into overcrowded trotros or priced out by artificial scarcity, not because Ghana lacks engineers or planners, but because this administration cannot even maintain a functional public transport system and has reduced policy to press conferences while people sleep in queues. This same culture of negligence has bled into our foreign policy, where careless, performative diplomacy has now held land Ghana on a shameful list of countries whose citizens can no longer obtain immigrant visas to the United States. The US government has announced an indefinite pause on immigrant visa processing for 75 countries, including Ghana, cutting off a critical legal pathway for family reunion and skilled migration at precisely the moment our economy depends heavily on remittances from hard-working Ghanaians abroad. The United States is our single largest remittance corridor, sending between $1.5 to $2.5 billion a year into Ghanaian households. Yet through a mixture of short-sighted posture and weak consular statecraft, this government has allowed our citizens to be lumped into a penalty list that will slowly suffocate that lifeline and diminish Ghana's contribution to solving global problems. A serious government will treat our transportation system and immigrant visas as instruments of national survival, not as afterthoughts. This one has managed to trap its own people twice, stranded at home in endless, dehumanizing transport queues, and stranded behind a new wall of visa restrictions. Its diplomacy was too clumsy, too reactive, and too self-satisfied to prevent. The minority, therefore, is calling for immediate, concrete action in the transport sector for an emergency program to restore the state bus fleet and saturate the West-hit corridors with reliable services so that no Ghanaian is left stranded for hours simply trying to get to work or back home. On the diplomatic front, the minority has demanded the dismissal of the foreign minister and ambassador to the United States and urged the president to deploy a high-level special envoy to Washington and constitute a crisis task force to secure Ghana's prompt removal from the U.S. immigrant visa-free list and protect the billions in remittance on which millions of Ghanaian households depend. Ladies and gentlemen, public trust is further undermined by a visible pattern of selective justice, former NPP officials have been pursued with vigor, while figures associated with the NDC facing similar questions have not attracted the same edges. At the same time, serious concerns around financial transparency at the highest level of our monetary system have gone largely unaddressed. When the law is enforced according to political power, color, rather than evidence, we are no longer dealing with the rule of law. We are watching a performance of the rule of law, a scripted play in which the audience knows the ending before the curtain rises. But the show continues to preserve appearances. The MPP minority have resisted rash and opaque lawmaking, including attempt to force through certain health financing measures without required parliamentary quorum. We have repeatedly insisted on transparency. These actions are not partisan games. They are necessary steps to narrow the dangerous gap between what our constitution says and how power is actually exercised. The new patriotic party, the mighty minority, has learned its lessons from defeat. We concede that we couldn't have been perfect in government. We know that there were some mistakes that were made. We take collective responsibility. Our responsibility now is deeper, and we assure Ghanaians that we in Parliament will continue to lead the charge, even as we finish our flag bearership race on 31st of January 2026. Our main task thereafter will be to win back the trust and mandate of the Ghanaian people by rallying behind our elected new leader, work hand in hand with him to go through his vision and ensure that we put forward a responsible opposition and provide alternatives. We've done it before. When the NPP was in opposition in the 90s, and we finally had power in the 2000s, the people of Ghana know what the before administration did. We introduced the health insurance policy, a policy that the NDC never dreamed of, a policy that the NDC doubted, a policy that the NDC in Parliament boycotted its passage. Yet today, that is what has saved millions of Ghanaians. Again, when we were in opposition between 2009 and 2016, and we promised free SHs, the NDC told us we could not implement. The people of Ghana are aware that when the grace of God gave us opportunity to govern, we saw the implementation of the free SHs. However imperfect it was, the policy was implemented. Many Ghanaian youths who ordinarily could not have had an opportunity to have secondary education had the opportunity of being educated. What is left after this government had taken office is to take it to a higher level, use the opportunity created to build human resource capacity to create jobs. They've shut down the 1D1F policy. In its place, no alternative. So Ghanaian businesses are left in a state of uncertainty. There is no incentive for the private sector. So we ask, what is the trade minister doing? What is the trade minister doing? We can in the least describe her as a redundant minister with no policy to promote economic growth. Now let us turn to the lithium. We want to deal with the lithium agreement. When the NDC was in opposition, they questioned the lithium agreement that was before Parliament. But upon assuming office, the agreement was brought, reintroduced, in a very worse state. When the minority exerted pressure on the minister and government. They came through the back door to now withdraw the paper, the agreement, claiming that they are now going through further consultation. The question is, at the time Honorable Ama Kofi-Boa was defending this new agreement on the House floor, didn't he know that he needed to do further consultation? At the time that he challenged the sincerity of the minority, up until civil society joined the call, was he being fair to the people of Ghana? Was he being transparent? We reiterate again the call on the Minister of Land and Natural Resources to resign because he failed the people of Ghana. The minority interrogated the reduction in royalties from 10 to 5%. We carried the questions further regarding the lapses in the transparency of the whole agreement. He defended it, and now he came back to withdraw it. That alone amounts to a serious mischief. That alone is a policy failure that the minister cannot get away with. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now turn attention to a disturbing matter on the House floor, which we promise the people of Ghana that when Parliament commences, reconvenes on the 3rd of February, we are no more going to allow the majority to have it. The majority has turned Parliament into a Parliament of fast track and no scrutiny. A rubber stamp Parliament where everything comes under certificate of agency. They should be ready to beat us in the chamber. We will resist with all the energy in us. No more certificate of agency. They had their way in the passage of the Gold Board law, the Energy Sector Recovery Levy, the Doomsday Levy. They also introduced a certificate of agency and many more other laws that they pass it through certificate of agency without any scrutiny. We hereby sound a caution to the NDC majority. If they are not ready to read, we are ready to read. We all became aware that their 189 only exists in numbers when it comes to substance. They can't mark the length of the trousers of the minority. They only talk numbers. But we all know that even in the passage of laws, when it comes to quality debate, we do proper research and we argue on facts supported with data. What they come into the chamber to do is their propaganda. But come 2026, this 2026, they will never have their way. We will hold their feet to fire and ensure that each minister account for his stewardship. We know that 2026 budget is a chop-chop budget. We know that 2026 budget is a chop-chop budget. We are going to open our eye and scrutinize every contract, every document that goes to PPA. The minority will follow it and bring motions. And we hereby also plead with Mr. Speaker that he is doing Ghana's work and he's doing the work for the growth of democracy. We are aware Mr. Speaker is an NDC leading member. But where he sits is to protect both of us. We have been frustrated by numerous dismissal of our motions. Questions are delayed. Questions are declined. Issues that must be allowed to be debated on the House floor, we see subtle culture of silence being introduced and procedural roadblocks are used to deny us opportunity. But we want to pray, Mr. Speaker, most humbly, that he should prioritize substance over form. That is the root of equity. He should prioritize prudence over procedure and allow debate to flow. We will not sit idly by and allow the majority to use their numbers to deny us our duty in ensuring that there is proper oversight. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by promising that we will not renege on our fundamental duties to the Constitution. We will fight for the people of Ghana. And in doing so, we will not be obstructive. We will scrutinize, hold government to account, ensure that just as we did in 2025, where we brought up issues to the limelight, we're going to repeat it. And this time around, we are going to do so even as we have done with all our internal elections, that we now have a leader, and we are going to do so with a firm determination and assurance that come 2028, the NPP deserves to come back into office. Yeah. This pressure may not be done and done well without at least talking about this third-term agenda. We are aware that Mr. President himself says he's not interested in third-term agenda. But we take this opportunity to also mention to Mr. President. Now, Mr. President, we are aware that many of your party members want to quit the agenda. Please tell them one more time. Maybe when we said so in Singapore, they didn't hear. Mr. President, you haven't spoken about your non-interest in third-term in Ghana. Please tell your people that you are not interested at all. They shouldn't lead you into temptation. And by the way, it is not possible. Also, we have heard that certain people have filed certain processes at the court. We also have this to tell my Lord Bavubon. We know that this job was handed to you on a silver platter. We know that you have your masters to please. But my Lord Bavubon, in the end, when history is being written, it should be your name. And to our judges at the Supreme Court, Ghanaians are watching how you determine the matters that are coming before you will question your own integrity. When you came for vetting, you made certain commitment to the people of Ghana. Ghanaians heard you. So again, the mighty minority is watching you. We will not be silenced by threats of contempt. If by criticizing the judiciary, they will march us into his home, we are ready to become prisoners. Thank you very much. And we'll talk later.
Arise, Ghana youth, for your country. The nation demands your devotion. Let us all unite to uphold them and make them great and strong. We are all evolved. We are all evolved. We are all evolved in building a motherland. We are all evolved. We are all evolved. We are all evolved in building a motherland. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please resume this.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say thank you enough for the wonderful submission by the leader of the mighty minority, the leader of the 87th Infantry Battalion, We will now open up the conversation to our friends from the media. If there is any question, we are ready to take. My colleague, Honorable Jerry Ahmed Shai, will be doing the justice. If you have any concern, you raise up your hand. Here he is going to play the role of the speaker. If you catch his eye, if you catch the eye of the member of parliament for Wigan, then we will be able to do justice. So now the floor is open for our friends from the media. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kweku Seshedamso from GhanaInfuse.com. I just want to find out from the minority if there are plans after your internal context to bring colleagues together, because we see what is going on, since you want to stand firm and hold government accountable. Thank you.
You announce your media.
Leader, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is James Ghana Page, and host of the constituency. Leader, you mentioned, and Ghanaians agree with you, the quality of debate advanced in the floor of parliament by the minority. Emphatically, you called for the dismissal of the foreign affairs minister. Are there other ministers you want to see go, or is it just a dislike for the foreign affairs minister? And is it not a situation where the job at hand is bigger than the labourers on the floor, regards the number of ministers John Dramani Mahama has appointed and expected? You also mentioned that the majority has 189. Have you already considered Adawaso East to the majority?
Yes, any other please? Okay. Okay, please. Okay, graphic. No, Joy, then I'll come to graphic. Your name and then where?
My name is James Abeji with Joy News. On the transport crisis in Accra and the other cities, the minority leader talks about the state of the state transport system and how government is not adding up to the numbers. In our recent interview with the Metro Mass Transit boss, he talks about the fact that some of these buses that have been disposed were done under the previous government. Minority Leader, I want to ask if you can give us some details about some of these decisions to dispose of some of these buses. I also know that you initiated an electric bus project before you left government to purchase about 100 buses, 10 have been brought. The status of that, is it supposed to be continued by the recent government, and if you have any update on adding up to the numbers? Plus, if there is any solution, you can refer to government on this. Thank you.
Minority Leader will respond to these three questions before we take the next batch.
Yeah, so wait first.
So let me deal with the first issue of post-31st January in Parliament. As you may be well aware, we've had a very civil engagement from Parliament. We, the 87, those colleagues who have been engaged in this discourse have been so with all civility. I want to assure you that these are internal matters. As for politics, things get heated. Soon after, we all rally behind the leader and the MPP flag to push the party agenda and to let Ghanaians know what we have for them. But you see, the NDC is busy talking about us. What they've also forgotten is that they also have a leadership contest awaiting them. And do also obligation. Omo dem go there kankan kra. Sisi awo be hu no I say do gatia o say o content you talk. meanwhile no campaigning. They are even say, I saw buying everyone your own preferred candidate. Jubilee House before, I'm some more candidates. Already a flag bearer among na party no so one candidate. Indeed, I change the ones. But the president can say MPP there. Yami Aduma after 31st. Yeah, a war parliament. The real task to say when Piatsuno, yet the Bakuye and Kabum have a tie in your community. They mina Jampua, Emma party in Africa. Intino, and this form of John, no Fias. The entrepreneur, Abia by mid this year. Oman Mahama ever by any black president. Because Obia and pay to me, which one more vice president, also on the president. And then I'm saying that he said, Alpha Haruna, a Jew and running mate. He said, chief of staff, chief of staff, and also now fine, and also the president, and also was say, a running mate. And if you put the majority leader, and also on a baby, and a black, almost your own permutation. A finance minister, and also almost say already president, and also a dependent running mate. Inti, I don't know, Atasa. One person minister of Grano, Sika, it is on with him now. Now, we are going to come farmer, very president. On opening the difference between opposition and government. Our opposition are cutting bomb, and nobody minister. Sika, the bay, Juma I asked some man, one of the already president, and this is what they are. Now, back to quality of debate. Yes, I mean, ladies and gentlemen of the press, I don't think that there is any debate on this matter. Check the records. We have become formidable opposition because each one of us, in fact, if you look at the first timers on our side, it's so reassuring that MPP indeed has a future. Very fantastic. I told somebody that in future it may be very difficult to make some selections because all of them are competent, all of them are determined, all of them have what it takes to deliver. So as for that one, it comes without question. Now on the issue of the foreign minister. My colleague, we in the minority, we don't attack personality.
After that, then the two
follow the consistency in my public discourse and that of my colleagues. We don't do personality attack. No. From the victim to the House floor to all engagements, we raise issues. How can our foreign minister have an engagement with some ambassadors, write on social media, and the next day we hear of an embargo? How can you claim that Israel deported some Ghanaians and without engaging, you also go ahead to say retaliation? You know, when we were kids, right? There were times that when somebody is provoking you, then you say that, wouldn't say we have penny or booty. Then I will yes. So you are careful. If our foreign minister was that measured, he would have known that attacking Israel had consequences. I leave it here. And went to the wise is now. So we don't have anything personal against anybody. In serious democracies, when a policy fails, the minister resigns. How can the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources come to Parliament and to defend an agreement Only to do use them to withdraw it for further consultation. Any serious democracy, you have to resign. So that call on him to resign is not born out of our dislike for him. Our call on the Honorable Ablakwa to resign is not born out of any dislike or any problem. There's a clear foreign policy failure. He has not walked the path of his predecessors. He took foreign policy to higher levels. Even recently in airports, Ghana has lost out on a lot of vacancies that arose at airports, all because we thought we were eyeing an AU chair for His Excellency the President next year. What of if the countries we are relying on reserve? Ghana is a regular contributor. In fact, we don't fail in our contribution to airports. Go for the records. We've lost out in employment in airports. Institutional heads, 0. Main employment, technical staff, the ECOWAS civil servants. Ghana contributes so much, but we are losing out. So what is the foreign minister? On the Metro Mass issue, we are going to call on the Minister of Transport when Parliament resumes to answer questions regarding why they sat down for a whole year without putting in place measures to beef up the fleet levels. It again exposes the minister's lack of clear vision for the transport sector. But we would bring our time, put together a paper by the appropriate committee of the caucus, and hold the minister's feet to the fire when Parliament resumes. So bear with us. We want to do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll take the next set of questions. Okay.
Graphic.
Our colleague, the sector head, is here, and we want to expatiate a bit on this. So please bear with me.
The ranking member on transport. After that, you ask a question.
Yeah, I want to clarify before you come, since he's the chairman of the transport.
Is your question related to the state?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't ask any further question?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, in the leader's presentation, I heard him accuse this government of failing to institute a properly functional state transport. But per recent report we read, during your administration,
Did he accuse them or that's the reality?
he blamed this government.
Yes. But is that a reality or is an accusation?
So
the
I'm
reality.
asking a question, then you can answer. But we all know that the problems that we are facing today in terms of Ghanaians having easy access to public transportation has existed over the years during your 8-year administration. I in Accra take public transport, and I always go through tough time as sector getting access to public transport, and the unbearable fares transport operators are charged. But we know that during your administration, there is a report that about 330 to 400 Metro Mass buses that were auctioned, some sold as cheap, as low as 2,500, some of your colleagues. Would you want to deny this report? Because if you fail to deny it, then we can also attribute the current challenge to some of your administration.
Rafi, please, can you reframe your question? Why is one an accusation and one a report? You are saying that there is a report that was an auction.
The accusation is that.
And then you said the other one is an accusation. So is that one too not an accusation? That's your last sentence.
No. Two issues here. The accusation is that, one, the minority leader is blaming this government of failing to institute a functional state transport. As a government, which just, as a party which just exited power in 2024, we all saw that the very issue that you're accusing this government of, when prevailing under your administration.
So why did we vote for that?
Okay, it's okay.
Thank you very much. I think for the question so let's respond to one.
Why? I know the question.
Earlier one with regard to the auction.
Give it to me. You can ask questions.
A lot of people don't know what goes into the process before any bus is auctioned. Let me take my time to educate. Yes. No, in the auctioning of the buses that you are talking about, before any bus is being auctioned, it has to be certified by the Board of Safety. It is not true that buses were sold at a peanut. No movable buses were sold to any cronies. It is a palpable lies which being thrown out because of the recent event that is happening. And they are trying to just equalize, make an equalization. So I just want to let you know that it is palpable lies. If they want any full inquiry into the matter, like the leader said, we, once we resume, the minority will go for that. We have a public inquiry for any Ghanaians to know the truth behind. Let us face the fact. There are challenges. People, Ghanaians are suffering to have, commercial transportation to their works and to travel around, and that is the most difficult thing, the problem that we have at hand. And I expect every Ghanaian to be concerned about it, to find a solution to it. We, on the minority side, will continue to assist the government with whatever ideas that we need to. So that is what I want to say. On the electric buses, yes, the previous government ordered 100 buses. The idea was that we want to bring 10 to try it, because that was the first time that we were adding EV buses to our fleet. So the idea was that after the 10, we'll bring back the 90. Now we lost power. We were expecting this administration, this new government, to bring in the 90 buses, which already all arrangement had been done. They have decided not to bring the buses. It is up to Ghanaians to put fire on their feet and ask them why they have not brought those buses. So please, these are the facts on the ground, and I know most Ghanaians knows about it. So let us be factual about some of these matters, so that we don't, in an attempt to make any equalization, we try to put out some falsehood, which at the end of the day, we will not be able to authenticate it. So that is what I want to say.
Thank you. We'll take a new set of questions, the next set of questions. Yes.
Good morning. My name is My name is Maurice Hamafan from Nanamo Bloggers. My question is that what steps is the minority taking to address the many hospitals and other treatments initiated by the former government that has now been stopped?
Yes. DNA.
Thank you. My name is Ataminsa. I work for Ghana News Agency. Minority leader, as you said in your presentation, that the minority will resist any bill that will come under certificate of agency. And I was wondering, because when the Pandai issue came up, even though the minority protested vehemently and even took the center stage of the chamber, but the majority was able to pass 8 estimates at that time. In spite of the chaos, in the midst of the chaos, they continued because they have the numbers. So how serious can we take this issue? Because you could not even sustain the protest. It is only that day that you protested. The next day you cooperated with them. How do we take you serious? Thank you.
This question, even before the minority leader come, I don't know how you are talking about resistance and then the protest on that time. We are talking about 2026. And you are talking about 2025. You are 1 year behind.
GTV.
Thank you very much. My name is Valencia from NDC. I think my question is in line with what my senior colleague was talking about. So in his presentation, he made mention that the minority will not allow the majority to have its way this time. So we want to find out what way or what are some of the moves they're going to do. Are they going to be working out the change like what we saw in the previous sitting, or what move are you going to do if the majority considers the government regardless of the objection?
My sister, if you listen to my sister, Honorable Jenny, if you listen to the minority leader very well, he said unless they beat us. So the walkout is not an option here. And you know, that's the leader. We are the whips. So come out with a strategy. But the last sitting, the certificate of agency were too many. And after that, you now see that they are coming back for amendment of the bills that they have just passed into laws because they rush it. They now realize that there are problems. They are coming with amendment. Even Goldberg, they will come with an amendment. Wait and see, because there are serious problems there. So that is why he is saying that we are ready to read. If they are not ready to read, we are ready to read and scrutinize every document. So rushing it, there are a lot of strategy as to how we can take it, and we understand it better than them.
We trust you. But Chief, I'm wondering who discusses this our strategy. We should come and tell you our strategy. I don't get it.
Thank you. My name is Christian. With the insights and national resources. Okay, I'm concerned about the losses you mentioned regarding the gold reserves. Our Bank of Ghana records indicate that during your tenure, especially between 2022 to 2024, there were significant losses under the gold for reserves program. The Bank of Ghana governor admits to the losses and is looking forward to solutions. It's called for an all-stakeholder engagement to find the way forward. Are you ready to sit at the table with Gold Board, Bank of Ghana in finding a solution to the challenges?
Okay. I will come.
You take the question.
So, President said you want to know about losses. You see, it would always be convenient for someone to engage in, blaming and say that, oh, something happened yesterday, so why must you question me if same thing is happening to you? Granted, without admitting that indeed there were some losses in the previous years. Didn't they come to say that they are resetting Ghana? And aren't they supposed to do things better than they came to meeting? So the fact that there were some mistakes, just for the sake of argument, means that I cannot question you if you're doing something wrong. I mean, I don't get the logic in it. But be that as it may, we have filed a motion, and that motion has been admitted. Hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to do the scrutiny, and the governor will have to explain the actions of the central bank. Although, like I said, we have also become aware that we had a joint board meeting where the charges that were already originally or previously around 15% have all been brought down 9.7. Let me get the correct figures. I don't want to. When we're dealing with numbers, we have to deal with numbers like this. I don't want to. Yes, it's here. We have 9.75 for the bullion and 9.55 for unprocessed gold. Previously, it was 15%. So you see, the minority scrutiny has yielded some gains. If the government thought all was well, they wouldn't have meant to review this. Okay? So it tells you that there was something going wrong somewhere. We are saying that in gold trading, there should be no losses. That excuse that there is always an economic cost. It's neither here nor there. Say that to little children. If the economic cost of implementing a policy will be that astronomical, then you better look for another policy alternative. If in implementing a policy, you want to stabilize your city, the cost will be so high that it will deny you the opportunity to build schools, construct roads, build hospitals. Then you better look for another alternative. And that alternative readily comes to mind. Invest in agriculture and make more money. If you invest in agriculture, your city will be more stable than going into gold for reserves, spending so much to stabilize your city, and then denying yourself the needed revenue. That's what the point we're making.
Thank you, our able minority. So we'll take the last batch of questions. I think you have your bite already. Oh.
Please, let the question be straightforward. I'm advising. Else I'll take a look.
I don't know why the caveat even gets to me. Leader, the last time there was a voting on the floor, when the first deputy speaker quoted or mentioned the case between Justice Abdullahi versus the Republic, where the Supreme Court gave judgment that presiding deputy speakers could vote. And that day, I told leader, your numbers were really in minute. So where I was sitting, I thought there was some sort of conflict between yourself and your colleagues. That probably because NDC were able to marshal about 155 of their members. And we, sorry, I don't say we were. And you were, sorry, and the minority were only 25 in the house, but NDC were 155. So I was thinking that at that moment, Mr. Minority Leader, I was thinking that at that moment, I thought you should allow the voting when the speaker put in the vote, the question. But you insisted that, oh, I'm coming. You insisted that there should be a voting. And I saw some sort of nakedness on the part of minority. Because NDC were able...
Go ahead and ask the question.
The question was, how united was the NPP front when it came to that particular issue? Thinking that since we don't have since the NPP didn't have the numbers, so you shall allow, the voting, and you call for a voting. Oh, please, head count, and the head count exposed the minority. That at that moment, the chief whip couldn't shout the numbers.
Thank you. Next.
I told you that I was still very concerned about any other question, please. Please make sure you ask your question.
There is somebody.
Let's have some gravity and straight to the point, please.
Yeah, my name is Kwesi Kunsu, editor of Point Africa. Leader, I think last year, when the government was able to reduce the dollar from its rate downwards, there was an issue that from the minority that because the government was not spending more, the government was not paying contractors. That's the reason why the dollar. So now that the government has been able to sustain that, I'm going to give the government credit for that.
Please, final question, Abi. I think the right question is let's take the final one. Please, which station are you from?
Some of these questions, please, let's be guided that there is a press conference, the minority leader did a presentation. So let's stick to what is in the text.
Good afternoon. My name is Bryce Wachi. I'm from Asifua Radio.
Is your station affiliated with CNN and BBC?
It seems all our attention has been given to gold board. So I want to know the minority stake on what's happening at Cocoa Board.
Very good question.
Honorable members, let me know, yes. So we had a question from on the numbers. You know, what we would do in Parliament, we do it for history. And in the politics in the chamber, it's not always about winning, it's about the statement you make. So yes, you may be right. Anybody watching from afar, you ask, the minority, you are just, these guys have overwhelming numbers. Why don't you let it go? It's a statement you want to make, that matters. We doubted the 155. In fact, that we checked, they were 129. They were struggling. And you realize that it is only when we begin to hold their feet to the fire that they start to mash up their numbers. It's a fact. So it is not about us. It's about the impact we make on government business. So it's a strategy matter, which I want you to get it right. And it also goes into answer what we said and what we did. The other issue regarding the cocoa sector, I think our ranking member is here. So I will let him take it. He will take it. Yes, my good friend, Mr. Kunsi, right? And your Kunsi. And he, the press conference.